Welcome to Side Alpha Leadership, a podcast where leaders can share their experiences and discuss what leadership means to them. I'm your host, David Polikoff. Hello and welcome to this month's episode of Side Alpha Leadership. I'm your host, David Polikoff. On the line today, I have Stephanie White. Stephanie is a career firefighter in the Washington metropolitan area and has a podcast called 5 After Midnight on Fire Engineering Blog Talk Radio. And she's also written a couple of articles for Fire Engineering. So without me rambling on, Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, David.
So tell me a little bit about yourself so everybody kind of knows who you are and you know, maybe how you got into the fire service and a little bit of your background, and then we'll start hitting some topics.
Born and raised in the Metro Washington, D.C. area, about the third generation of my family to do so. Really got interested in the fire service by pure accident. I traveled a lot in high school. Every year I got to do a different work project in a different country, and I wanted to do medicine. And a friend of mine said, well, why don't you become a volunteer while you're waiting to pick your college? And I did, and accidentally got hired by my county. And the first day of fire school where we got to go in live burns, just absolutely got hooked by the physical and mental side of it all. So fell into it purely accidentally, never meant to go the fire side, but that's where we ended up and loving every second of it. This is year 18 for me, so 20 years overall in the fire service. It's been quite the fun journey to see all the different changes that we've gone through.
Yeah, and obviously I've said it 1,000 times on this podcast that the fire service is a true calling. It's not for everybody. It is you get people that have never been in the fire service before, and the moment they walk into school and they're getting yelled at by their instructors, a lot of work that they have to do. They put on the turnout gear, and the moment they light the fire, that's kind of where the rubber meets the road. Is this the person that's going to perform? Is this the person that's going to find that excitement or that type A personality? You know, like you said, the moment that you get into it and it's like, this is awesome, you're hooked, you're looking for the next thing to do in the fire service, the next class to take, you know, getting to a busy engine or truck company, running jobs, building that rapport with your shift. So it truly is a calling. And, you know, I've seen all walks of life come through the doors, people that have had zero experience to people that have been, you know, firefighters for years before they got hired. So sounds like that you kind of backed into the career as, I'm assuming, first generation, and you never looked back.
No, definitely first generation, came from a business owner kind of family. So no one in my family wore a uniform of any kind. I was definitely the first to fall into that. It'll be interesting to see. I have two boys, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there because their dad's a firefighter as well. So kind of excited to see what they choose to do with their life. But you're right, fell into it, just got absolutely hooked the first time I had to do something that physically and mentally hard, all combined into one, plus the adrenaline. It's just an absolute addiction.
Yeah,
luckily it's lasted this long.
Yeah, and that's one of the cool things about the fire department. I tell people, I said, you know, you go to work and it's never the same every day. Yeah, we don't run fires every day,
never.
But the job is never the same. There's always something different. So it's not like you show up to your office, you sit in your cubicle, you turn your computer on, you answer emails, and it's the same thing day after day after day. Even if you're not running calls, you're sitting in the station, you're drinking coffee, maybe watching TV or training, hanging out with your second family. So it's never the same. So like I said, it's a true calling. I could have never seen myself doing this. I couldn't see myself doing anything else. And I have two kids, and you know, I've told them, I said, I don't want this life for you. Go out, get college, and if you come back from college and you still want to do it, then I'll support you 100%. But you know, it's a calling. It's the fire service is always evolving. It's always changing. And even though the two things that firefighters hate the most is change and the way things are, it is always changing and it is always evolving. But some of the things that I want to talk about, some of the topics that we had talked about offline. I just had my first EEO class in Frederick, even though I've been there for a little over a year. And it was actually really good. It was probably one of the better ones that I've taken out of the 30 some years that I've been in the fire service. The guy was actually really knowledgeable, cited a lot of court cases, a lot of interesting things, and even talked about things that I didn't recognize. But we had this offline conversation, the instructor and I, before the students got there, and I told him, when it comes to EEO and the business world, or the regular world, as I like to say, it's a lot different. Yes, there's federal and state laws that we have to comply with, but when it comes to the fire service or the police department or the military, it's a different animal. And unfortunately, I know you can't say, well, we're going to have a fire department EEO class and then we're going to have a regular EEO class. The laws are the laws. But I want to talk to you a little bit about EEO as it pertains to the fire service, and how can we make sure that we're following the laws, but we're also not ruining that camaraderie and as everybody knows, the dark humor that comes in service oriented jobs like police, fire, military, medical, nurses, things like that. How do we follow the EEO laws but still be adult enough to say, hey, this may have crossed the line, and instead of blowing it up and taking it to HR and getting the press involved in politics and all that, how do we maintain respect, decorum in the fire service, but still following EEO?
So congratulations on bringing up my pet peeve on a Sunday morning. EEO is something that I've hated since I joined the fire service, since my very first EEO box checker class that I had to take at the age of 18. I've always personally found it insulting. And you hit it on the head when you said there are laws that we have to know. Absolutely. There are laws that are national laws, state laws, that you have to know. The interesting thing about those laws is most of those laws are basically just common sense decency laws, right? There's not too much fine minutia in it that we can't figure out ourselves. Don't be a jerk is pretty much what you could say. An EEO class would be over. The thing that I've always truly disliked about the professional business HR EEO model, which is what has been always fed to the fire service, is how I feel it's very accusatory. It's very, you guys are going to do these wrong things. So when you do these wrong things, here are the steps that we're going to take. And I've never liked that. Don't treat us like we are not these, well, we're not mature adults. That's why we became firefighters.
That is true.
However, we do have half a brain on our shoulders. And I feel like it's always caused this divide, in fact, because I feel irritated after taking the class. I don't even like being a woman after taking the class because I feel that it's presented as this unfair standard of, well, men, you're going to do something stupid, so get prepared to know what's coming your way. It's how I've always taken it. And I, as a woman, have never liked that. I have 4 brothers, and then I have an extended fire department family. So I've never appreciated that attitude. And you and I talked about this in our little pre-discussion phone call. In 24 hours around my family for a holiday, or around my significant other, or when parenting my children, I am going to mess up. I'm going to say something out of anger, or I'm going to make an inappropriate joke. At some point in my day, I'm going to have to issue 1, if not a dozen, apologies to someone around me for saying something the wrong way, or that was maybe over some sort of line, or saying something in anger. If that's just natural human nature around my family, around those I love, how can you set up a training model that says there's absolutely no room for any human error in the firehouse, and there's no room for you guys as adults to decide how to discuss that human error? Because I think what we've done with this HREEO model is we've created such a culture of fear for shift officers and for the official rank leaders that they feel they need to run straight out and do something about the inappropriate thing they just heard or the look they saw on someone's face in reaction, versus giving us the grace and the room to say, okay, well, that didn't land right, or that wasn't good. Let's give these two people the avenue to have a discussion about it, because not everything is going to be just that blatant way over the line harassment that we can all identify, because that does exist. That's out there. And there absolutely has to be an avenue for that, right? We need to say, listen, that was aggressive, that was wrong, that can never happen again. Something needs to happen about that. But what about the offhand joke that we're all going to make at some point around the kitchen table? Why does that have to be addressed with such a punitive air when you're going to go home and you're going to get off duty and you're going to do the same darn thing? It's never made sense to me how we've handled it with just an all or nothing punitive attitude. You and I discussed earlier as well, it's this pendulum, fire service, mental health, everything, politics out in the world, everything in life is this pendulum where I think when women first started coming in the fire service, some really bad things happened to them. They were getting their windows in their cars broken, gear urinated on, you name it, that happened. So we just took that pendulum and we went in this incredibly aggressive standard of no one say anything remotely funny that's offensive, you're all in trouble. You can't do that. Come on. We're together for 24 hours. With staffing shortages, make that 36, 48 hours. You have to have a practical model of family in place with grace built in, and then with that, nope, the spanking's coming because that was way too far, built in as well. It's not practical. And it's something we need to change, because I've seen no change. Of all the things that I see change in the fire service, that HREEO model has not budged in its impractical nature.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to, like you had hit on it, the fear and the laws and the lawsuits and the civil lawsuits and things like that, people are running scared, and the smallest infraction that happens, we set off an atomic bomb of what we have to do and how we're going to deal with this. As an officer, and I've said this 1,000 times to any officer or upcoming officers, if you don't have a pulse on your shift, if you're hiding in the office, you don't know what's going on, you're not an effective leader, you're not an effective officer. And one of the things that you and I talked about offline that I want to kind of touch on here is as an officer, you have to be able to read and see your people, which means you have to be visible. So when that off-color joke happens or an off-color comment, that officer has to be able to read the room to see how it landed and then the direction that they're going to go based off what they observed. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
I think that hopefully if someone in our house on our shift is going through a divorce, cancer, just lost a parent, whatever unfortunate life event they're going through, we're all hopefully going to watch out for them. We're going to look at them. We're going to pay a little bit more attention to how tired they look or their moods or their attitudes. As a shift, we're hopefully going to monitor them. And I think, yes, the shift leader absolutely needs to be involved, but really it's an entire shift thing where we're watching out for each other. Maybe Billy Bob says something that's a little too far, and Peggy Sue looked a little uncomfortable, but she's not saying anything. As that caring shift member, we say to Billy Bob, hey, later, hey, I think that was a line too far. Watch it, buddy. And say to Peggy Sue, hey, I saw you were uncomfortable. Was that a little much? Okay, I said something to Billy Bob. Or you tell Billy Bob and Peggy Sue to go talk to each other. But it's really not just a shift leader thing. It is an all-encompassing shift family dynamic as well. And you and I offline, we had a good conversation before this for a little bit. We were talking about, how does this problem get solved? And really the answer is shift dynamics, because you mentioned earlier, well, where you are, you've been lucky, you haven't seen as much of it. And I pointed out that women also often don't mention it because we don't want to cause a stir. Or that's just something in our human nature as women, the type of women that join the fire department. We already know that we're facing different things as females, and we're a little more quiet when it comes to those things. 99% of women. So you don't actually hear a lot of the stuff that those females go through. And that's where the men are really going to be the ones who make or break the new frontier of EEO and harassment and how we can change it to a better model and a more functioning model. And it's really going to rely on the male coworkers stepping up and policing the kitchen table, because everything that I've been through in my career, everything that was really aggressively over the line that happened to me, unless it got physical, 99.9% of it, I never said a word. I never went any official channel with it. And the people that solved it, the people that fixed that problem, the people that dealt with the harasser or aggressor were always male shift members that were keeping an eye on me and said, absolutely not. That behavior isn't allowed or accepted in my firehouse, in our firehouse. And they took that shift accountability to say, not on our watch, this is an allowable behavior. And that is something that we don't discuss. We talk about the ugly stories. We talk about the bad stories. Those are the things that make the media because they're glamorous, they're sensational, there's something to talk about. We don't ever talk about the stories where your shipmates are the heroes and they're the ones stepping in and risking being embarrassed, being ostracized, being made fun of, whatever it is, to do the right thing. So yes, shift leaders, incredibly important in terms of monitoring the temperature of the shift and stepping back a little, but just as important, if not more important, because there's more of us, are the rest of us around the firehouse, monitoring each other and holding each other accountable in that way.
And that kind of led into one of the things that we want to talk about is the issues that you see, and then how you move forward, how you fix those issues and then move forward. And I agree. I think that things need to be handled at the shift level. And again, like we said in the beginning, there are things that are so egregious that they need to be followed up. They need to be pushed to a higher level. So your bosses aren't blindsided by something that could be coming down the pike. But the everyday fire service banter, the off-color joke, and there are off-color jokes that cross the line, the cursing in the firehouse, the whatever. People should and need to understand that it's the fire service, and it's not a man or a woman thing. I mean, there have been females in the firehouse that would make me blush with some of the conversations that they have. But I always have chalked it up to we're a family, and we're a family from many different walks of life. So everybody brings something unique and different to the table. But that whole conversation of handling it at the lowest level, and as officers, we've always said, try to handle issues at the lowest level so they don't have to rise to the battalion chief or the deputy assistant chief or to HR or to the media or political. Handle things at the lowest level that you, as a competent human being, understand can and should be handled at the lowest level. Every little infraction can't go nuclear. It can't just go right to HR and lawsuits and things like that. There are things that need to be handled at the lowest level. And in my opinion, I think that's how we move forward. That's how we fix a lot of these things. I also think that the officer needs to set the standard, as well as the senior members, that anybody that comes to our station that wants to do this job gets the fair shake to do the job and is allowed all the protection that we would give everybody else on the shift. and the tools and mechanisms to succeed. I don't think that anybody should ever turn a back on anybody based on their religion, their sex, or their race or anything like that. And I really hope that that's not happening. I don't hear a lot of that. I know it does happen, but again, bringing this all back in, I think that the way to fix this and move forward is to have those conversations in the station, one-on-one communications, and be adult enough and be brave enough to say, I didn't appreciate what you said, or I didn't like what you said, or can you explain to me why you said what you said? Maybe I misheard it. Be adult enough to say that, as opposed to just automatically going to, I'm offended, you hurt my feelings, and now I've been aggrieved and I'm going to pursue this to the most highest level possible. Would you agree on that take?
Absolutely, all but the senior member part, because now that I'm getting older, that's me and I don't want to grow up. No, you really hit the nail on the head, and something I love that my one of my last battalion chiefs used to say all the time is, and it's a buzzword, but courageous conversations. And you use part of that term. And that's exactly what it is. I hate that we're calling it courageous conversations, because it's, be a decent effing human being is really what we should be calling it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is that. It's when somebody new comes in and sits down at the kitchen table. I guess one of the ways that I have grown up is definitely with a lot more foul-mouthed in my early 20s as opposed to now almost 40. And I remember one gentleman one day that was working overtime that I had never met before. I didn't know he was very religious, and he said something to me. He said, you really curse too much. And that was eye-opening to me as a little baby in my early 20s of, oh, hey, you don't know this person. Why are you dropping an F-bomb every other word? How is that fair to them? Because they are on your team for today. And it's always a matter of discovering where the boundaries of the people around you are. And I think that's fair. If you discover someone has boundaries that are very, very different to yours, it's not going to kill you for the day, or for, if they're a brand new transfer into your house, to just, don't make those jokes around them. Nobody's telling you not to go back in the locker room and not make that joke. But if you know that that's a step too far for that person, be a fucking adult. Don't make that joke. It's that simple. I do have and have worked with shipmates permanently assigned to me that do have religious preferences and are very devout. And why would I not allow them that space to feel honored? That's not fair. I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want them to not do that for me. Why wouldn't I not do that for them? I'm not going to be around them for every minute of those 24 hours. I should be a decent human being when I'm in their presence, and just not be offensive based off their standard. I don't think that is too much to ask. Now, you are going to run across some people some days who might take it too far. And their standards might be a little inflexible, or a lot inflexible, for a firehouse. Because you hit it on the head earlier, we have dark humor. We have very dark humor. It's how we cope. It's how we manage to see these absolutely horrible things day in, day out, and not go insane. And at that point, you might need to sit down as a shift and say, how do we make this work? Because your line is way over here. Our functioning humor line is right here. How do we make this an environment where everyone is comfortable? And you might have to have that very, very tough conversation. But everyone at that firehouse deserves to have that conversation be had, because I don't want to end up sitting in IA because I decided not to have that conversation and that person complained on me, and I don't want them sitting in silence and being uncomfortable every day because I know where their line was and I chose to cross it every day. Be a basic freaking functional, respectful human being is really the crux of it all.
Yeah, I agree. Being a decent human being, and all parties need to meet each other in the middle. It can't be I don't like this, so therefore the entire shift has to change. So this is the way it's going to be from here on out while I'm here. Versus we don't care what you think, and we're going to continue to do this and make you feel uncomfortable all day long. There's got to be the middle ground. And as we are tasked with not only operating millions of dollars worth of equipment, hundreds of millions of dollars in a fire service budget, people's lives in our hands. The fact that we can't figure out what the middle ground is in the fire department in a firehouse for 24 hours is beyond comprehension for me. I think that as firefighters, we are a different breed, but we have good critical thinking skills. We think faster on our feet, and we should be able to recognize that, this particular person doesn't like this. They're here for 24 hours. We can curb our behavior. We can, be decent human beings to make sure that we're meeting halfway. I don't think that's anything that's outrageous, and that's not asking too much of the fire service. So I want to shift gears a little bit. We talked a little bit about respect, and I want to talk about earning respect. I've had this conversation a handful of times on different podcasts, and I think we are all in agreement that just because you hold rank doesn't mean you're automatically respected. Just because you are,
Amen.
Yeah, just because you are, a firefighter and you work in a busy firehouse doesn't mean that you're going to get that respect. It's something that's earned. So how has it been for you, coming in as a first generation firefighter, working in busy firehouses? How's it been for you to earn respect and to keep that respect and continue to move forward? And then how do you have that conversation with the new people, male or female, that come in, the new rookies, about you don't get respect just because you're putting on that uniform. It's earned, and this is how you do it.
I think step one is give up trying to earn it right away. And by right away, I mean at all. Take that energy and channel it into focusing on doing that job better every day and to the best of your ability. And I think just like everyone else, I came in and that was just the big stress, right? I want the guys to like me. I want the guys to think I'm good at my job. And each time you do that, you set yourself up for failure because you're not paying attention to the job itself. You're paying attention to that concern in the back of your head. And that goes for men, women, all of us. Focus on the task at hand. If they're not going to respect you, that you have your own respect because you went out there on that playing field and you performed your best. If you fell, if you made a mistake, you can be hard on yourself. You can come back better each time. And I think when you're busy focusing on that, you're doing well, you're performing better. That's where the respect is naturally going to come. But if you worry about it, you're going to force it and you're never going to get it. And I think that was a big stumbling block for me. And something I see other females struggle with a lot is trying to fit in. Don't try to fit in. You're yourself. You're your own unique human being with your own personality and strengths. Work on yourself, work on those strengths, and the rest will come organically. And if it doesn't, oh well, I'm busy doing the best that I can do. Maybe you should be focused on doing the best that you can do instead of criticizing me. And that's really, I think, where things start to even out in the playing field and you see whose respect is worth having in the first place.
Yeah, that's a great statement. Why would you want to be respected by people that probably don't even respect themselves? The people that are constantly complaining around the table, the people that find the bad in every situation as opposed to the silver lining, the people that would rather criticize than give compliments. I think when it comes to earning that respect through time, a lot of it is humility. Admit when you make a mistake. If you fall, say, "Hey, I made a mistake, and now that I know that was a mistake, and this is what I'm going to do in the future to not make that mistake." And the same thing holds true for officers. I mean, just because you put on a white shirt or a gold badge doesn't mean you automatically get that respect. You have to earn it all over again. You may have been a great firefighter riding on the back step, but now you're riding up front. So you have to earn that respect all over again. And that comes through humility and being fair and being consistent and things like that. Same thing holds true with the firefighters. You need to be consistent with what you do. Be yourself. Look in the mirror. Respect yourself. And if you start to really respect yourself and the job that you're doing, that'll show as you work towards the job when you're on the job. And again, it all comes back to always wanting to learn. Don't ever think that you have mastered everything, because you haven't. You're always learning. And I've said it 1,000 times. The day you think that you've learned everything is the day you need to hang it up, because now you're becoming a danger to yourself and to your coworkers. So I think, like you said, stop trying to earn respect and just go in there and be the best firefighter that you can be. One of the things that always struck me funny is when we have a new recruit class come in, myself and another captain would get about an hour with the new recruits, and we would talk to them about what the life in the firehouse is going to be. We know what it's like in the academy, but we're going to let you know what it's going to be like in the firehouse. One of the first things I tell them is always make a pot of coffee, and if you don't know how to make coffee, you figure it out and make coffee. And I actually had a guy tell me, "Well, I don't drink coffee." And I looked him right in the eye and I said, "Oh, you thought that we were having a conversation? No, not at all. I'm telling you that you will make a pot of coffee, and you'll also make tea, and you'll put a lot of sugar in it. And I don't care if nobody drinks it. You're going to be making that pot of coffee. You're going to be making tea. And any dishes that are in the sink, you wash them. Any trash can that's full, you empty it. The key is nobody should be telling you to do that." And people see that. They see that when you go into the firehouse and you're cleaning up and you're vacuuming and you're doing things when you're not told to do them, and you're studying, that's how you start to gain the respect of your peers, because you are trying to be a part of that shift and you know your place. I haven't seen new firefighters in firehouses because, once you become a battalion chief, you're kind of focused on a lot bigger things. But the new people that are coming in to your job that you see, are you finding them offended that they may have to make a pot of coffee or push a broom or clean a toilet? Are you finding anybody that's appalled by that and don't think that that's part of their job?
This is such a struggle bus answer. Yes, I think it's been 50-50. And I would like to think, optimist speaking here, that the issue is that nobody has explained the why. I think, and this isn't a bad thing, that this generation coming up has been raised with the parents who don't say, my parents' answer to everything was because I said so.
Right.
And I think the generation coming in had the parents who took a different approach of maybe a little more bargaining and explaining. So they're coming in not understanding that when I see you leaving that locker room, an absolute disaster, and I hear you say things such as, "Well, someone cleans the police station. I think it's very unfair that we have to clean this." And that you think that those things are beneath you. Well, sister or brother, I don't know if you've noticed how dirty we get in a burning building or how much work it is. If this is beneath you, how am I not going to think that the actions on a fire ground are going to be too hard for you and are beneath you? And I'm not sure that people are explaining that to them and that it's clicking. I would like to think that's what the issue is, but it has started to become something that is more relevant that I have noticed is people are missing that connection of this is why you're doing those things. If you prove yourself in these tiny little things to me that you find insignificant, that tells me that you have the dedication to then go and do the harder, bigger things, because it's a pain in the ass to be cleaning the firehouse all day long, running the calls, making the coffee, doing all the drills. That's a pain in the ass. It's not easy. Your probe year is not designed to be easy. I hate to tell you this. And you're not being asked to keep the coffee pot full because you're a woman, or to clean the kitchen because you're a woman. You're being asked to do those things because you're the last person through the firehouse doors. You're the new guy. Tag, you're it. And I think that is definitely an up and coming prevalent epidemic that we need to get a hold of and sit down and explain in recruit school. You're going to do these things. Here's the why. Because the generations coming in are not the generation that you or I were, where they told me to do it. Okay, I'm going to do it. Be bitter that I'm going to do it, but I'm doing it because it's what I was told to do. They're questioning. Do I like that they're questioning? No, I find it to be incredibly annoying, but it's a different generation. We all complain about the generation that comes after us. Well, back in my fucking day is what we hear every day from the old people like me in the firehouse. Well, it's not my day anymore. I'm 2 years away from retirement. It's the new people's day. So if this is the way that they learn, I need to get with the times and, okay, fine. I'm going to explain it to you. You got to do these little things, because otherwise, see all these guys and gals watching, they're not going to trust you on that fire ground. And believe me, when you're on that fire ground and you're pushing down that hallway and it's hot as hell, you kind of need to trust each other. And I really need to believe that you can do all the little tiny things and listen when we're pushing down that hallway.
Yeah, I agree. And I wrote down, I'm taking notes as you were talking, because we've talked about this before, about the why. I've been an instructor since 1999, and we didn't teach the why behind things. It was like, you got to do this so you don't die. You have to do this because this is the way we do it. But now, the generation that's coming in, they have never not known what it's like to not have a computer. They have never not known that what it's like to have to open up a dictionary or an encyclopedia to get information. They've never not known what it's like to not have a cell phone. So everything that they want, they get an explanation right away. If they want to know something, they get that instant gratification of an explanation right away. Where when I came through, we didn't have that. And you just like, I need you to get that ladder up to the second floor and get up there and do a search. Okay. And you run up there and you do it. But the explaining the why behind the things that we do, it does go a long way. And I tell people, I said, don't get offended if somebody says, why do we have to do this? Or why do we do this? They're not being disrespectful. They truly want to know, when I do this, why am I doing it? What's the end result and what's the benefit? They want all that information because that's what they're used to getting. If they want to know about something, they Google it and they have everything they need to know about that particular topic. So you have to adjust your teaching method a little bit to explain the why behind the things that we do. We talk about when you prepare a mop and a bucket of water, you need to put this much soap in it, because if you put too much bleach in it, then everybody's going to be coughing and carrying on. If you don't put enough bleach in it, then the mop's going to get dirty and it's going to smell like throw up when you mop the floor. So we need to make sure that we put the right mixture of chemicals in here. When we mop floors, we mop back and forth, and we don't mop into a corner, we mop towards the door, so we're not walking across our dirty floor or our clean floor. You explain the why. Why do I got to make coffee when I don't drink it? Because it's not about you. It's about everybody else on the shift that may drink coffee, and because they're watching you to see what you're doing and to see how you're approaching the job. And if you approach the job as, even though I don't drink coffee, I'm going to make sure that the coffee pot's filled for my shift mates because they do. And people see that. Then you start to become accepted. It's the same thing. I didn't start drinking coffee until I became a lieutenant. So you're talking 12 years of my career, I never drank coffee, but I always made sure the coffee pot was full. Fast forward as a battalion chief, I am the first person at work, or I was always the first person to work. I would drop the first pot of coffee. And I would have to tell the rookie, I'd have to put on a paper towel, coffee was made at such and such time, because I was afraid the rookie would come in, dump that coffee because they think it's old, to make the fresh pot of coffee. But those are the whys behind it. Those are the reasons. That's the reason why we explain the things that we do, because people get a better understanding and they have that satisfaction. It's not a disrespect thing. That's what I've noticed.
No, absolutely. And just so that we're not beating up on the new people, it's funny because here I am watching the new people not do that and shaking my head. And I am in the dangerous, dangerous years of immediately before retirement. And all those people that I didn't like when I came in because, they're not helping clean the kitchen. They're not doing chores. They're just sitting around. They're not the first person to jump up. They're the last person to trail along on the way to the drill. Those are my years. And I see myself starting to fall into those traps. So it's amazing how I think those are the make or break years, your proby years and then your ending years, because those are the times when people are looking at you. And I forget in my time frame that proby is looking at me. And if I'm becoming in my older age just a complete lazy piece of shit we got new people in here to do it, and I'm not jumping up to do things, then why would they jump up to do something if I'm not jumping up to do it? And that's part of the why generation now is, why would I do it when Stephanie's not jumping up to do it? And that's something my generation really has to latch on and realize is more than ever, we as senior people are being watched more than we watched our senior people, because we were just going to say, that lazy mother effer, and we were going to go do it anyway. Well, now if we aren't doing it, if we're falling into those traps, then this generation more than ever is not going to do it. And it's crazy to think of how much we, I think more than any generation before us, can make or break the incoming generation through our influence of what we do and don't do. That's a little bit terrifying now that I've said it out loud, but that's the reality of things.
And I think it's interesting that what you say, I equate it to, you can't let off the gas until you walk out the door on your final shift.
No, sir.
So I want to talk a little bit about some leadership styles. It's kind of getting into what you view as a leadership style, and how you, even if you don't hold rank, you're still viewed as a leader, being a senior person on the shift. So what's your leadership style? What do you look for in a leader? And then what do you look for as you being a mentor for the newer people coming in?
Ooh, that's a tough one, because I'm the butt of every single joke at my firehouse. I'm the kid sister, because I came in at a young age, and it's funny, even the mid-range people are the same age as me. So we have a very interesting dynamic there. So leadership for me, I think, in my current situation is being mom, being a looker-outer, seeing where struggles may happen, or seeing when people maybe need that listening ear or that extra boost up or that solicited or unsolicited piece of advice. I think it's being the person who keeps that eye out. I have an amazing, excellent captain who does that for all of us, but you also need to have the older people in the firehouse who can take that burden off them as well, because they have so many other things to be paying attention to during the day. They're not going to catch everything. We're going to be the ones hanging out in the day room around 4:00 or in the kitchen harassing whoever's cooking, while the captain's going to be doing that unfortunate amount of paperwork that they've garnered as an officer. And I think that is a form of leadership, is having that person who watches, who listens, who helps you to bring it all together, kind of thing, to make you, when you're self-isolating and when your troubles at home are making you feel left out because you don't even know that you're self-isolating, because we all do that, having that person who brings you back into the fold. Shift mom, that's the current leadership style. In terms of how that affects new people, I think showing them the power of shift, the power of family. We joke all the time, oh, it's my second family. It's not a joke. We really, really are. It's insane to me to be around my shift with my significant other is always such a struggle, because there are all these inside jokes and all these things about you that your shift knows, that your significant other is never going to know. And that's such an insane connection to have with a group of people, but it is there and it is real. And so I think to show that to the new people, this is insanely important. You had better take care of this, because this can quite literally and figuratively make or break your life. Because if you're not taking care of that shift, if you're not listening, like you're watching that old person in the firehouse do as you go throughout your career, if you're not taking care of your people that are assigned with you, well, then when you lose that loved one, you go through that divorce, you go through that financial hardship, hard breakup, loss as a parent, whatever, that is going to happen to you. Something will happen. Then how can you expect these people to be around you? So I think that's my place in the leadership and mentorship role, is really carrying that torch that was set for me and carried for me with having those older senior guys who just were the quiet listeners, hey, Steph, what's going on? You didn't laugh at any of my hilarious jokes today, so clearly something's up.
I think that listening is the key. We as firefighters love to talk, but being able to actively listen is the key to be able to pick up on, what's going on the shift. And I also think that what we talked about offline a little bit, that whole mentorship it's an organic thing. It kind of happens because somebody would gravitate towards you because they can either relate to you, or they think that you're a good listener, or that things that you've done that they've seen on shift they can align with, and you may find that person kind of gravitating towards you, asking you more questions, and maybe confiding in you if things aren't right, or they don't feel comfortable with this. And then you as a senior member of the shift would actually recognize that, and instead of poo-pooing them away, kind of take them under your wing and kind of here's some things that I went through, and here's how I succeeded, and I've watched you and I've seen you doing this stuff. We can go out back, we can practice this, or we can talk about that. And it doesn't matter if you're male or female. It's somebody you feel comfortable talking to. It doesn't always have to be the officer. It could be that senior member. It could be somebody that just got off probation that's assigned to the shift, and maybe somebody's struggling being on probation, whether it's academics or they don't feel like they fit in. What am I doing wrong? Have that open conversation, that communication link, so you can help somebody succeed. And when somebody gets on the job, we want them to succeed. If this is truly what they want to do, there are people out there that just don't care one way or the other. That you'd recognize that right away. But people that do want to succeed, well, we want to help them because that's our job. We help people. So I think that what you offer from what you've gone through your entire career, and things that you've learned, and being at busy stations and running a ton of calls, and you have that information, or you have that the ability to pass that stuff on, and that's important when it comes time to your evening, your sunsetting in time of your career, where you're looking at retiring in a couple of years, 3 years, whatever. To be able to pass on some things that you learned. I'm a huge proponent of succession planning, making sure that somebody's ready to take your job, and leaving the fire service a better place. That's what we want. Obviously, that's been done throughout careers, because we're not where we were back in the 50s, 60s, or 70s, or even in the 80s. We've constantly evolved. So anybody can be a leader, providing that they recognize that they need to listen more than they talk, and they need to be able to offer help when it's needed. Or even if you see somebody struggling and they don't know how to ask for help, you pull them aside and just kind of, hey, I'm here if you need anything, type of thing. And I think that goes a long way. That leaves an impression on that person. So when they start to move forward and get better in their career, they'll pass what they learned from you to the next generation that's coming up. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And one thing I would be remiss if I didn't say in this whole conversation, because we have wandered from the initial topic, which I love that we've wandered, but I do want to bring one thing back around, and that is And this male, woman, it doesn't matter who you are. If you, and this is a leadership skill that we don't even realize is a leadership skill, and it's very hard to master. If you find yourself in a situation where someone is being downright evil to you, and I'm at the point in my life where I've seen it happen to other people near me, and it was insane to watch. If you are in that situation, we all like to brush it off, and we all second guess ourselves. Maybe it's me, maybe I'm sensitive, maybe it's whatever, this isn't happening. We go into a state of denial. If that is happening to you, if the people around you are saying, no, this is happening to you, I want you to sit down and I want you to think about the people coming up behind you. Is this going to happen to the next person with my personality? If I escape from this situation and I do nothing about it, am I just leaving a situation for the next person? And I think that is something that as firefighters is so hard for us to do, because none of us like to be the squeaky wheels, except for like this 0.2% that likes to be a squeaky wheel when it comes to this stuff. And they're normally the worst ambassadors ever. And that's normally why the rest of us don't like to be the squeaky wheel, even in legitimate situations. If you are dealing with a legitimate situation, I need you to think about that. I need you to think about, if I don't deal with this situation, if I don't cause this little squeak, am I going to potentially set the person up behind me for a horrible situation? And maybe they aren't as mentally strong as I am. And maybe this absolutely ruins their career, ruins their life, or me not saying anything causes this horrible person to gain even more bravery and do even worse things to them. It's, like I said, it's such a hard skill for us to master, but that is something that needs to be had in this conversation. Is there is a time where you cannot solve it at that kitchen table and you got to squeak, and it's hard. It's hard to be the person pulling that attention onto you. It's not fair. It's a situation that somebody else puts you in, but you got to do it. You got to find a way to correct that behavior for the people coming up behind you, and focus on that. Say, listen, this isn't me getting revenge. This isn't me finding relief for my own situation. This is me doing it for the guy or gal behind me. Because I've seen that happen to men quite a few times. I know this conversation started out as because women is normally what EEO and harassment is focused on, but it happens to men as well. And that's just a situation none of us should be in. So just a little challenge to throw out there, because I know it's hard for all of us to step up and do that, because we feel like we're somehow being selfish. You're not. You're not. The safety of the people behind you is just as important as your own safety.
Agreed. And it comes down to, if the senior people on the floor aren't saying something, by all means, that officer needs to step up to the plate to make sure that they are watching their people, making sure that there isn't that level of harassment or that level of evil going on in the station. If, again, it goes back to what I said.
But sometimes it is the officer, though.
Right. And that's where if the senior people on the shift see that officer is just way over the top, then that's time to go to the battalion chief. It's time to put an end to it, because if that person, like you said, is left to be able to continue to do that, it's going to get worse and worse, because they've never been challenged on that. So, having that strong technician or master firefighter on the shift that can pull the lieutenant or the captain aside and say, bro, you're over the line. You are way out there, and the direction that you're going is going to land you in the crosshairs of an EEO complaint, and it's going to bring the entire shift down, and it may end up breaking up the entire shift, and we all get sent out to other stations in the county. So it's not just about the one person; it's about the mass, and they have to be brave enough to stand up and say, nope. Not here, not today, even if it's against the officer. But if it's not, that officer needs to be able to, they need to be out of their office. They need to know what their people are doing. So Very good advice, and it's something that everybody needs to be aware of and needs to be able to step up when you know, because again, we're decent human beings. You know when something's not right, you need to say something about it. So I want to finish up with our last bullet point. We talked a little bit offline about it. Is what advice can you give to people that want to come into this job? And we're talking about, what training should they seek to prepare themselves to take the CPAT test. And then once they get on the job, what training would you see going beyond? And we talked about that there are politicians, and the moment politicians get involved in our job, it always is terrible. It's never good. But want to change some of the parameters of the CPAT because they don't have specific demographics making it in the fire service. And we've talked, and I've talked to many people that this job isn't for everybody. Not everybody can do this job. But we have testing mechanisms in place that have been in place for a long time for a reason. So somebody that's interested in this job, male or female, what advice would you offer? What training should they seek to successfully pass the CPAT and then move forward to have a career in the fire service?
So I got incredibly lucky that I came in initially as a volunteer, and my very first night in the firehouse, it was A shift on duty. They dragged me into their office and they said, "What the hell are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, my buddy said he's an EMT. I'm interested in working overseas." And they said, "Stop right there. What do you want to accomplish?" I said, "Well, there's this thing called medic." They said, "Okay." So they signed me up for medic school. And then when I got hired, they just were fantastic about saying, "Listen, kid, CPAT is just 10 minutes of your life. The academy is going to be 6 months of day in, day out, relentless training. So the first thing you have to do is realize that CPAT is the bare minimum. If you cannot pass CPAT, you will be absolutely destroyed in the academy and possibly be injured, which will greatly affect your life." So I say that to the politicians up in the state of Connecticut that we're trying to change that. You can't, because you're setting, if you're concerned about women not getting in the fire department, you are setting those women up for injury, because the academy is 100 times longer and harder. So please don't do that. Please don't destroy people's bodies just for your own political gain. That's thing number one. Find yourself. We're in the age of online, right? Everybody's got a cell phone. I will give you a link to one young lady who's got this great company she's a firefighter, and she does online CPAT training, and she has a lot of videos out there. Look for that stuff. There is that specific content on the internet now. Go find it. But you have to train past CPAT, because don't train for the bare minimum. You train for the bare minimum, you will fail, especially if you're struggling with CPAT. One of the great things that my organization where I work did, I don't know if they do it anymore, is they made you had to do a certain amount of trial runs before you were allowed to take CPAT. And they would make us go through an entire workout before even doing CPAT. So when you showed up for CPAT, fresh as a daisy, it was a lot easier to pass. Train past CPAT. Realize that we're struggling, the military is struggling, everybody is struggling to get people that are in shape into the academy. It's just across the board with any kind of physical job right now. Be aware of that. If you are on the cusp, you're still a tactical athlete. You have to be in shape to get this job. Use the internet as a resource. You will find specific things out there. One thing you and I talked about earlier as well is they're lowering these standards because they feel that enough women aren't coming onto the job. And I actually got asked this question recently in an interview, and if women aren't interested in the job, then I don't want them coming on the job. And I'll say that about any male as well. If a human being isn't interested, please don't dangle one tiny carrot in front of them. "Oh, you'll only work 10 days a month." Please don't do that. Do you want that person working on your grandmother? Will always be the question that we ask when it comes to anything, right? Is that what you want? No. That's not what you want. You don't want someone who's barely interested, who we're discovering a lot of people are coming on the job and leaving after 2 years and they're saying, well, I just wanted to try that. I mean, okay, if you just want to try it and you fall in love with it, great. But if you just want to try it and you are not in love with it right away, because you'll either fall in love with it right away or not at all, realize that it isn't the job for you and bow out gracefully. I think one of the ways that everybody fails when it comes to recruiting women is we've always approached firefighting as such a knuckle-dragging job, and it's not. It is one of the most cerebral jobs you can ever have at all. And we don't talk about that when we're talking about things. We talk about benefits. We talk about the physical side of that. We never talk about how much problem solving is involved. We're not fighting 20 fires every day, but we are solving all these problems for the citizens. And obviously all the world problems get solved around the kitchen table. Mm-hmm. Why aren't we putting that out there? Because women are very cerebral creatures. So it's funny that politicians get involved and think that it's the physical side. No, we're just marketing wrong. We suck at marketing. That's all it is. So fix the marketing and maybe you'll attract the right kind of strong female candidate. But do not touch those physical standards. You see often how people talk about, well, the physical standards are discriminatory. Fire is not discriminatory, and fire takes physically everything that you have. A good house fire, a good structure fire. You're not gonna crawl out of there feeling great like you spent a day at the spa. You're gonna feel horrible. You're gonna be shaky. You're gonna need a Gatorade and a minute to catch your breath, and you're not gonna be feeling good. I'm sorry. So don't lower the standard to attract someone who can't even survive that. Please don't. It is, at the end of the day, an inherently dangerous job. And that is something, even if we're not inherently in danger every day, every shift, we are at some point. Do not mess with that dynamic.
I know a bunch of counties. I know my county, or Montgomery County, does, and Frederick does as well. And I'm sure some of the other counties, they have what they call CPAT mentoring, where they'll show you what the CPAT is. They'll bring you to the training academy, and you'll have 3 or 4 training sessions of what the CPAT is. And I tell people, I said, if the organization you're going to try to become a member of is offering that, you're stupid if you're not showing up every day. I don't care if you can bench press Volkswagens. Go and learn the CPAT mentoring, and you'll find that there's techniques to doing things. It's not about brute strength. I've seen women pass a CPAT that are shorter than me and 90 pounds lighter than me are crushing the CPAT. And I've seen guys that look like they can bench press the Eiffel Tower, can't even get off the treadmill. They're done. So there is a technique. And like you said, you're a tactical athlete. I remember several years ago, J.J. Watt, who was the Houston Texans, he went and did some firefighting training, and it about killed him. And here's a dude who's I guess he's an offensive lineman. I don't know. Don't watch football that much anymore. I'm a hockey guy, but he pushes big ass men out of the way to get to a specific place. The job that we do requires all your muscles, requires that thinking to get the job done. So it's not for everybody. I said it 1,000 times, but we do offer CPAT mentoring. One of the things that you and I talked about offline, and I've said this on the radio show that we do for fire engineering, the politicians need to stop saying we don't have enough women in the fire service, so therefore we need to change the standards so we can get more women in the fire service. And my challenge is you're asking the wrong question. The question is
Correct.
Why aren't women applying to be in the fire service? It could be a bunch of answers. Maybe they just don't want to, and that's fine. I wouldn't force somebody to do something they don't want to do. But like you said, perhaps we're marketing it wrong. There are people out there that have that type A personality that probably don't know what the fire service is all about. You don't say you work 10 days a month, you get great benefits, you're making $58,000 a year as soon as you get out of the training academy. You only need a high school degree, blah, blah, blah. What you need to say is, hey, we're not going to put a gun in your hand and you're not going to have to kill people, but you're going to put a hose line in your hand. You're going to go in and you're going to kill fire. You're going to put people's lives in your hands. You're going to have the skills and the knowledge to be able to fix things that the average person can't fix. We're going to teach you how to think differently. We're going to teach you how to approach situations differently. We're going to teach you that when you walk into a restaurant, and it drives my wife crazy, that I'll sit down and I'll look and I say, if the fire started over here, it's going to go up this wall, it's going to go across that way. These things are going to catch on fire. So here's the 3 exits that you and I are going to have to make sure that we take if we get out of here. This isn't a conversation that I have all the time, but these are the things that run through firefighters' heads. I already know where the 3 exits are that I have to get out of here. And my last exit is throwing a chair through the window and we're going to go out that way. We're going to teach you how to think differently. That's how you market it. Do you want to be challenged? Do you want to get in good shape? Do you don't mind being smelly and stinky and being surrounded by a bunch of people that use cuss words as verbs and adjectives and high five each other because they truly love the job that they do? Well, then maybe those are the people we should be marketing towards. And when it comes to these people like, well, I'm not sure if I want to be in the fire service. I just want to try it out. My advice to them is go volunteer in your town. Go to the volunteer department because they'd love to have you. Become a member, take the training, and then you'll figure out right away, hey, is this something that I want to do as a career? And as you get through Fire 1 or you take EMT and you go, you know what, this isn't for me, then you bow out gracefully. You can either become an administrative member and do stuff behind the scenes or just leave altogether. And we haven't spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on a recruit class to get you through the training that you find that you don't want to do, and you've potentially taken a spot from somebody who would cut off their left pinky to be in your position right now. That's my advice to people that want to just try to feel out this career. Go be a volunteer first, then you'll decide whether or not you want to do it.
Absolutely.
So we're at that time. Believe it or not, we've been talking for an hour and 10 minutes, which I always love.
I believe it.
I love talking, having these conversations, and I love seeing these different perspectives to the fire service and to life in general. So with that, Stephanie, I truly appreciate you taking time out of your Sunday and away from your family to sit down and have a really good conversation with me. And if you want any last parting words, that's fine. You'd said that you had somebody that you know that does some CPAT stuff. If you want to throw that website out or anything else that you want to throw out there, take this opportunity to do it now.
Don't be an asshole. I think it's as simple as that. I mean, there's some refined on the border situations that happen, but let's face it, most of the stuff that gets us in trouble is just being an asshole. And don't do it. It's as simple as that. And that is how we change the fire service. We stand up for each other. We police our own kitchen tables, and we take pride in who we are as a unit. And that's how change is going to happen. And that's how we can stop sitting through these absolutely horrible HR sessions that are not in any way, shape, or form designed for us, but because behavior keeps happening and they have to slap some sort of Band-Aid on it. I don't have the name of the young lady right in front of me that does those sessions, but you can find me on Instagram. It's that paperwork firefighter, or you can email me at stephanie.k.white@gmail.com, and I will get you her information. Good luck to those who want to come in. Good luck to those who are currently on the job, and stay safe and don't be a jerk.
With that being said, Stephanie, thanks for being on the show. And again,
thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Check out her fire engineering blog talk radio podcast, 5 After Midnight. It's actually a really good podcast, so give it a listen. With that, Stephanie, again, thanks for being on the show. And if you go to FDIC, maybe I'll see you there. If not, I'm sure we'll bump into each other in different circles.
All right. Talk to you later, Chief.
Bye.